Good afternoon and welcome to the TaxCalc Power Hour. This is your chance to ask us questions about how best to use TaxCalc's wonderful tools and maybe share some of the tips and tricks that you've discovered yourself. I'm joined once again by the head of pre-sales here, Nick Moss, who spends the majority of his time out and about with our customers, showing them how to set up and use TaxCalc. And also by Danny Darcy, our key accounts manager, who's worked with hundreds of our customers to discover how TaxCalc can meet their needs. So before we get into the meat of today's session, some quick housekeeping. The chat function is your friend here, so post your comments in the chat. Everyone will see those comments and we can start getting some dialogue. So easy question, let's get warmed up. Just let us know where you are calling in from. It'd be great to find out if you've got any neighbours on here. Have a look in the chat and you might find some friends. So while we're waiting for people to do that and also to come in, how have you been, Nick? What's been going on with you?
Yeah, it's been a good week. We were at Accountex North last week, weren't we?
We were indeed, yeah.
Yeah, really good event. I think there was about 2,500 people.
Something like that. Probably some of the people who actually I recognise who are coming in today. So.
Yeah, I mean, more people recognised you from the Power Hours than me, Andy. Even though I'm on the call for most of it. You're the popular face of TaxCalc, Andy.
Nick's very bitter about this. So it was a really good show. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a really good energy, and saw some old friends and made some new ones too. So how are we getting on? We've
got 100 people that have joined already, and I'm letting more in as they come through, and we've got attendees from all over the country today, which is great to see.
Excellent.
Sam in York, John Perry in Loughborough.
So we will be, we're kicking off. We've got something special for you today. We've got a quiz lined up. So just to carry on with the housekeeping, there is a Q&A function. If you do want to communicate with us exclusively, then you can use Q&A. Only we will see those questions, but we try and build a community here, so use the chat if you can. But we are very keen to hear from you. We can open up your mics, we can talk to you directly as well. So if you've got a question that's a little bit more complex, we can give you a much better answer if we have a bit of a conversation. So if you do want to chat and you're happy to do so, if you indicate that when you post something in the chat, just say I'm happy to chat, something like that, we can open up your mic and we can actually have a conversation and a dialogue. So, as I say, we've got something a little bit special for you this week. We're going to do a bit of a quiz. So we've got some questions, and what we're going to say is, go into the chat, get ready, because the first correct answer in the chat wins a point. And what do points make? Nothing whatsoever. But you will get some satisfaction of knowing that you were right. So if we start off, I've got a bit of a tough question.
Yeah,
for the first one.
Tough one to start.
Tough one to start. So, on how many tabs within a client record, on the client record screen, can you create custom fields?
It's a tough one. I'm sure there's a few of you who have created your own custom fields in a few of those tabs. Probably not all of them, but I'll be impressed if anyone gets the answer.
Oh, David's quite close. Thanks, David. That's a great guess. Five, 2 guesses for 5 and 1 for 8. People are closer than I thought, actually.
Definitely a lot closer than I thought. To be fair, I only really ever use one of them. So
we did have to check as well. We had to check our numbers.
Glenn's saying, is there greater volume? I'm not sure if you're talking about the volume from us or volume of
custom fields.
Is there a greater volume of them? So we've got 5, 7 and 8. If anyone wants...
No one's guessed it right. Quite
yet,
right yet, but
come
I'm just waiting for the correct
answer. Keep your bids
answer.
coming in. There's a point up for grabs.
You've got to carry on 9, 0 and 10.
9 and 10 are a little bit high, guys. Oh, David.
There we go, Sam.
I think David's won. David's higher.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Everyone's saying the right number now. Okay. I think we can call the winner.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where you can go and create those custom fields, because I think you'll find that when you sign up to this event, you were asked for what were your most common things in terms of what you wanted to see from today's Power Hour, and custom fields always comes out as one of the top 3 things. Yeah. So bear in mind that the questions that we've asked in the quiz are mainly centered around the things that we're going to go through. So in terms of setting up those custom fields, I'm going to take you through how to go and set them up properly, and then show you how to go and kind of build those in reports as well. Because I appreciate I went through this in I think the first Power Hour we did a few months ago, but I know there's quite a few people who are going to be on today's call that didn't get to see the first one with Andy, Danny and myself. So if I share my screen now and take you through how you would go and go and create a custom field, because in terms of the 6 different sections, where they would appear, if I go to Practice Manager in the top left-hand corner and then open one of my clients, for example, Ronald Chang, it's these fields down the left-hand side where you're able to create your custom ones. Like I said, I only really ever use one of mine. If I go to engagement, you can see I've created my own custom fields down here at the bottom, where I can store standardized information across my entire user base, but have all of my staff members in my practice. If I'm a slightly larger practice, or if it's just yourself, it's just a nice place consistently in the database that everyone can store that information. But if I go to Admin Center, so if I go back to my home screen, I go to Admin Center in the bottom left-hand corner. If I go to Applications on the left-hand side of my screen, and then to Practice Manager Plus, or to be fair, if you don't have Practice Manager Plus, you can go to Practice Manager. So if I go into Practice Manager and double-click on it, and then on the left-hand side, you have custom fields. And this is where you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections.
So 6 was the answer.
6 was the answer. It took us a while to get there, I think,
Yeah.
but to be fair, I think it's incredibly rare that anyone would use more than a couple of these, but to be fair, depending on your use of custom fields, it kind of depends where you want those to sit. As we saw, I have most of mine set up on the engagement page, just because I like to kind of have mine in a consistent spot, but some people might prefer theirs to be in the area which relate to the information that you're storing in the system.
Before we go on, and there have been a lot of people that have come on since we started. We're welcome to the Power Hour. We're doing a quiz, and the first question is how many options do you have to enter custom fields on the client screen? So Nick is just running through that. So if you weren't sure what was happening, that's where we're at. So Nick, carry on.
Yeah, no problem at all. So effectively, the point of custom fields, as I was mentioning, was to store information that would ordinarily be stored outside of TaxCalc if you don't have a field already set up for it. A lot of people might store things like bookkeeping usernames and passwords outside of TaxCalc on Excel spreadsheets, whereas I can store them in TaxCalc on my engagement page, so it's consistent for every single client that I look after. If I wanted to create my own field on top of that, I would go to Create Field in the top right-hand corner, of which it would produce my wizard, of which if I then choosing the drop-down box, I then get to choose which of my 6 tabs it would appear on. I would then choose which one it needs to be on, for example, engagement page again. I then choose which clients it relates to. So if it's all of them, I tick them all. I tend to just make it available on all of them just so you know it's a field there. And then you enter the name of the field, but you can choose what type of information you store in. Is it purely a text field? Is it a number or date? But the one which I really like, particularly from a reporting point of view, is the drop-down option. Because if I choose drop-down, I can then give multiple different options. If it's just 2, I can say, yeah, I only want 2 options, but if I want 3 or 4 or 5, you just add more options, and that gives you the ability to choose from a drop-down list.
Have you got examples, Nick, of when that would be put into good use?
So the examples that I've got in my practice management database, for example, if I open up Ronald Chang in here, the text boxes are great for things like bookkeeping username and passwords, but I have a drop-down option in here for customer value. I appreciate you all probably treat your customers the same, such as TaxCalc do, but you might have a low, medium, or high value in terms of how much if they pay a different subscription to you in terms of the services that you provide. But you could have a preferred method of contact. So when you're sending information out of TaxCalc, potentially using our communication center for letters or emails, or you might be using a portal system, potentially like the one in our SmartVault system, you'll be able to have that set up as an option. So when you're running your mailing lists, you can say, right, I only want to select people that want to receive information via the post or through the portal. So having those as drop-down fields, tick box options as well. For example, do they take fee protection insurance with you as a practice? That's very nice to be able to report on. And a number of these fields can then also be used within our tokens included in letters and emails via a communication center. So it's not just purely a database storage dump as such that you've created. You're able to report on these and include the majority of them in your communications out to clients as well.
Sorry, Andy, I was just going to say, I guess it's better for reporting purposes to not have the free text option, just in case people have spelt phone, for example, in terms of communication.
Exactly that. So if there's anything which has got a consistent answer, for example, preferred method of contact, as I've got in there, phone, email, post, portal, please make sure that that you use the category or category option, because as you said, if someone puts a space at the end, that will then report differently on our reporting tool than if it doesn't. So again, it just keeps it consistent, makes it easy for people to use, and making sure that ones don't get missed from a reporting perspective.
Awesome, thank you. And if you do have any other particular areas around any of the subjects we're covering, if you've got any particular questions around custom fields, for example, just post those in the chat. We can address those. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and also just to say that everyone has access to the custom fields. I don't know how many firms would be using custom fields in TaxCalc already, but everyone does have access to them. If you're using any kind of module within TaxCalc, you've got access to Practice Manager and you've got access to those custom fields. So do use them and do explore them. I think they're worth exploring, certainly.
Absolutely. Right, so shall we move on to question 2 in the TaxCalc Power Hour Pub quiz? This is this could be arguably a subjective question here, but
Maybe we should time it.
we're going to go with this. So answers in the chat, please. What is the quickest way to navigate between products? If you've got multiple products within TaxCalc, what's the quickest way that you can navigate between them?
Should we give an example, Nick? Would that be helpful?
Sarah's straight in.
Straight in.
Oh, there we go.
Sarah,
You need
straight
the
in.
example.
The cog. Oh, the cog.
Well done, Sarah.
I think Sarah came to last time. I think Sarah may have seen the cog.
I appreciate Tony's answer there in terms of going to the dashboard. That's quite good, because you do get the hyperlinks that go through there. I can show you that example in the system as well. But exactly, the cog is spot on. When we did the Power Hour last time around, we had a bit of time at the end and went through just some of the things that I think that people are unaware of, that you can get the most out of TaxCalc, and this little cog that I'm about to show in the top right hand corner of TaxCalc is probably one of the areas which very few people knew about. So well done to Sarah and Susie and James spotting that, because it's kind of a tiny little hidden point in TaxCalc, but allows you to fly around the product.
Making out there was a point to Sarah with that one.
Yes, I was giving out points a little bit too freely,
Yeah, I
perhaps, in
think
the
you were.
first round.
Just to be clear, Sarah's got the point. So
Okay,
you could be
okay.
getting nothing at all, Sarah, if you carry on like this.
So in terms of helping you with navigating around the various different products, if I go to Practice Manager again in the top left hand corner, and I open up one of, say, my limited company clients, so if I open up Church Lane, so if I search for church, double click on it, I could then open up my client, have a look at what engagement tab I've got and the extra fields relating to that, go to my communications activity, if I've got anything, any notes for that particular client you'd see in there. But using that cog that Sarah mentioned in the top right hand corner, that then allows me to navigate to the various different products that I have licensed in TaxCalc. So I'm able to go to Accounts Production and open up, say, March 2023 period for Church Lane PLC in TaxCalc. I'm also then able to go to the cog and then open another accounting period for Church Lane. So rather than having to come out of my 2023 sets of accounts and go back in, I can click on Open Accounting Period and say Open up March 2022, and that will allow me to have my 2023 accounting period alongside my 2022. For example, if I go to, say, postings in here, you can see this is my 2023 set. If I go back to 2022, it's back to the client information. So, and you can have that with as many accounting periods as you like. If I go back to open another accounting period, I can go to open 2021, and that will have the 3 periods at the top.
Is this a good time, Nick, as well, to show my favourite feature in all of TaxCalc?
Yes, absolutely. I will absolutely get to that, and you'll know exactly what it is, Danny. Because if I open up, say, click the cog again, what you might also want to do is to click Open in Tax Return Production, because I would expect you potentially to want to open up, say, the 2023 tax. I'm actually just going to open the 23 sets of accounts as well. I don't know why I left 21 open for some reason. That's just my eyes, I think. So you can have accounts and tax open for the same client side by side. But Danny's favourite thing to do, and I expect that a lot of people on the call today will be running with multiple screens, I know I do in my office at home. What you're able to do in TaxCalc is click Windows at the top, in the top left-hand corner of the product, and choose Multiple Window Mode. Because by choosing Multiple Window Mode, what that does is it pops out all the different products to its own separate window. So I could have accounts on my screen on the right, I could have tax on the screen on the left, and I would then be able to have kind of the other information such as the home screen or, say, client records behind that. So I'm able to work on both the tax and account system side by side, updating those two systems rather than having to flick between different tabs.
It's smart. I'm genuinely going to investigate getting I Love the Cog
Yeah.
T-shirts
Yeah.
that we will maybe give out to, if you
Mugs,
come and approach
socks.
us when we're at Caltex, and we'll have I Love the Cog, and no one will know what you're talking about unless you've been to the Power Hour.
Exactly. And in terms of the other thing to mention is where people think that, once I'm done with that, you might have to close the window down to get back to the start. If you go back to Windows and choose single window mode, it throws them all back together in the same order that they were before. So you don't have to worry about closing them all down, then reopening them again. You just effectively select it and it pushes it back together. Now, in terms of other ways of which you can do it, I think, as I can't remember who it was who mentioned it before, you can use the dashboard view. So if I go back to my launcher screen, in the bottom right hand corner there is an option for dashboard. So if I click dashboard down here in the bottom right hand corner, what that will allow me to do is to have various different views set up which can provide hyperlinks to the clients that maybe you're working on, potentially from the Practice Manager Plus section or other areas of TaxCalc, that allow you to very quickly just click on a particular client record, and that will then open up the client within that. Other areas that I think is quite nice, that to be honest, I only really found out in the last few months using TaxCalc, and I'm one of our trainers. You're never really going to know anything inside and out until you really look under the hood of it all. That if you just in Practice Manager and you find the client you want to open up, if you right click on that, you can open in the various different products this way without even going to the cog in the first instance. But if you are using us for Communication Center for emails and letters, it might be quite useful to right click on the client and click Send Email, and that will then bring up the Send Email option where you can choose which email address you want to send it from, which template do you want to send, in terms of me keeping it consistent for every single client going out. So rather than just when we look at Communication Center from a function of sending mass emails out to clients, you can right-click on the individual client in Practice Manager to take you through to the send individual email to your client.
We've had one question in the chat, Nick, that I just wanted to go back to, just in order of when the questions are coming through. So Glenn has said, when using TaxCalc engagement documents, is it possible to link several documents together so they can merge without gaps between each new document? So this forms one main document. Are
they three separate documents? Say that again, sorry, Danny, I was trying to work that out.
So when using TaxCalc engagement documents, is it possible to link several documents together so they can merge without gaps between each new document? So it forms one main document.
Right, so what I think you're wanting to do is there's three documents I expect in our mail merge templates that you would want to send to your clients. I think this is probably what I'm expecting. Glenn, please put it in the chat if it's not. What you're able to do is export this template to Word, export all three of your documents to Word and collate it into a single document, and then import it again as a different name of a template. So effectively, you instead of having three separate templates, you create one, and then you're able to produce that in one go rather than in three. But it's a slightly different template.
Super template.
Yeah, a super template, as you mentioned there, Danny. Yeah.
Glenn, would it be worth? Let me give you the option to unmute, and if you want to ask us a question, then you're more than welcome.
While you're finding Glenn, I'm just going to answer Carmel's question there in terms of if you have two screens, can you have the current year tax return on one screen and the prior year tax return on the other screen? Unfortunately not, Carmel. What it does is it opens up each product in its own window, so you can have as many tax returns as you like in one particular window and accounts in another window. You can't have, say, one client's tax return on one screen, one client's on another, or the same clients with multiple years. Effectively, it keeps tax in its own section and accounts in its own section. It's something which we've looked at. It might be something which we release in the future, but it's not something that is particularly set in stone that we're going to release. But it is something we're aware of and we could look at in the future.
Glenn, is that you? Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Right, very well. We're looking at doing lots of bespoke documents, putting them into TaxCalc, and then basically a covering letter, and then putting several together so that each client has something quite unique for them, and that was the emphasis of the question, so that we can basically then create this one good document for them and then save it.
Right, so Nick.
Yeah, I think this is probably something we'll have to address probably offline with Glenn, unfortunately. But at the minute, it's going to have to be that super template function that Danny gave its name to. But I don't see why we couldn't look at that, in the next few releases in terms of helping you how you would sort out with those templates, Glenn. Looks like Sarah's got the same issue with that. But Sarah's also mentioned in terms of the engagement letters have to be the old Word version to upload. In the next release, that is being resolved. So you will be able to upload .docx emails, letters rather than .doc. So that should be resolved in the next release.
Coming out the next month.
Yes.
So that you haven't got long to go. So Sarah, yes, fabulous. Okay, Thank you very much, Glenn. We'll end that call. Thank you so much. So, okay, we've got a lot of questions coming in. Do we want to go to the next question, or do you want to take some of these?
I think if we go through the next question in particular, because some of the questions that are coming up, I think might be resolved by the answer to the next one.
Don't give it away, because don't forget there's points up for grabs. So again, if you've come along slightly late to the session, I know a lot of people came in the last kind of 5 minutes or so. We're doing a quiz this week, so we are asking questions, and this is like a pub quiz, but you can win points, which mean nothing at all. Answers in the chat. First correct answer wins a point. What 3 ways can you get in touch with our support team?
And if someone can think of a 4th way, I think we should award a bonus point, because
Do you think I've made a point? How many points do you think I've got to give away? These are
I'm too free with the points.
honestly just points all over. But yeah, if you can come up with a 4th way, you do get a bonus point.
Yeah, and one of them isn't just messaging Andy on LinkedIn.
No,
that isn't the best way.
I do get a lot of food on my phone line. I get the odd support query. Don't do that, by the way. Really don't do that.
I think Sarah's got it.
Sarah, oh
think
my
she
word,
has.
she's surging ahead. Sarah, this is incredible. Well done. So we've got the correct answer being the support button
In the software.
in the software. Hit that, mash that, and you'll get through to support. Email and phone.
Yeah, I think Danny's going to put the support email and phone number in the chat, just so if anyone doesn't have them to hand, if you do need them, we can. You'll then have them after today. But if I show everyone kind of the best way to log a support call, because I appreciate that there are times to time when you do need to get in touch with us. Sometimes ringing up, you don't want to do that. You just want to log a quick call through the software. If I show you my favourite ways to log it through the software, effectively I could. Hopefully you can see my screen now. If I just go to help at the top and click contact TaxCalc support, everyone thinks it's remote support, but it's not. You have to log the support call first. So remote support is what you would use to give us access to view your screen and do a screen share. But if you click contact TaxCalc support, that brings up a form for you to fill in with your name, telephone number, and listing what the problem is. You can kind of go away, do what you need to, and then we'll call you back. But there's a way which I think kind of sets us apart from a lot of the other products out there on the market. That is, if you're having an issue with, say, a tax return, or you're not sure which box to fill something in, or a figure's coming out not exactly how you're expecting it to be. If you open up a tax return, whether that be corporation tax, personal, trust, or partnership, if you have that tax return open and then go to help, you will also have the option to send return to TaxCalc. By clicking that, it then gives you 2 extra tick boxes at the bottom. Please make sure you do have a tick box to say attach a copy of the return, because otherwise it's kind of pointless sending the return to TaxCalc without it. And also please make sure the tick box for send as anonymous is ticked. It should be there as default, so just make sure you don't untick it by mistake, because what it does, it sends everything through as Joe Blogs or Jane Doe or something like that. But again, please fill in your name and description as well, rather than just sending us your return without really explaining why we need to see it. But I think if people get used to going to the help and send return to TaxCalc, if you've got any tax issues, it does make it a lot easier, because we can see exactly what you're trying to do rather than having to replicate it our end before calling you back. But yeah, I would always recommend logging it through the system before sending an email or ringing up. But I appreciate sometimes you just want to get through to someone.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that telephone support is there. I know some of our competitors have turned off telephone support, and TaxCalc know that it's vital for you to kind of get through and speak to someone.
Interesting point. I don't know if you did realise, but our support team are based just downstairs in the office, and they're right here on the phones, and they're real people.
Yeah, Nick and I often go to the support team when we have a query that we need answering, and
they're wonderful. They're
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
We
I don't know what we do that.
extended hours over tax season, and they're. I mean, some of them are all right to speak to. You can go to the pub with some of them, not all of them.
Just to jump in, Phil has also suggested as well, he said, don't forget the fun shortcut is to press F12 when you're in the software to send a health check to the support team, which is useful as well.
Phil knows how to have fun, though, doesn't he? That's Phil on a good.
He's
night
used
out.
that F12 button before.
Okay, question 4 in the quiz, this is hotting up, and someone please knock Sarah off her perch, because she'll become unbearable.
She's running away with it.
Okay, this is possibly not the toughest of questions. What colour is the accounts page in TaxCalc?
No looking.
No
might
looking.
From
can't-
memory.
We can tell if you're looking. So, we've got various. Now, this has become subjective.
We did have this idea because, colour, I guess, is slightly more subjective than.
So, what
than other
colour are we
answers.
officially calling it? There will be a Pantone reference.
I call it purple in demonstrations. I've heard magenta in the past. But yeah, I think burgundy from Catherine there. I might be keeping that one in the future. But yeah, James, I'm colourblind. Well, that's quite difficult for you, James, to answer that question. I was kind of skewed against you. But effectively, it was a bit of a roundabout way for me to kind of show you some of the fancy areas in accounts production.
We just used that to shoehorn in some Nick.
Yeah. So if I share my screen again and take you through some of the areas in accounts production that particularly been added into I think it was in the summer release that probably people aren't aware of because it's kind of hidden in a couple of different buttons. So if I open up accounts production and open up again Church Lane that we saw before and open up say my March 2023 accounting period. If I take you through to account setup actually to start with, one of the things I just want to make you aware of is that under accounts presentation, there is the opportunity for you to display your practice logo on the front cover of your full accounts and also the opportunity to put your client's logo on the accounts as well. I'm sure you have a few clients of yours that you might not want to put your logo on their full set of accounts. So you do have the option to change that on a client by client basis here to do not display. But what you might want to do is if I go to my admin section, and then firm details in the top left hand corner, this is where you can put your practice logo into the system so that if this option here has it as bottom, it then would appear on that set of accounts. So if I went to my reports and full financial statements, we'll see my client logo that I've got here is the Colonel. So yeah, I think I know the Colonel too well, to be honest, Andy. But if I then scroll down, you'll see I then have my TaxCalc practice logo on the set of accounts as well, so it looks a bit nice, and you can play around with those, I believe, to if you do have like binded windows for your clients, if you do any bound accounts for your clients. But bear in mind, if you go to registrar financial statements, either ones which you would submit to Companies House, it does remove those logos, so they're only there for the ones which you send to your client for the full financial statements. The other thing I want to make you aware of in accounts production primarily as well is if I go to say my full financial statements and then scroll down to say my accounting policies. I appreciate that sometimes you want to change some of the text in the accounting policy. So some of you might go to notes, find the note you want to work on, find the note, and then go and change the text within it. But what you will be aware of with TaxCalc now, hopefully, is you have this switch to edit mode in the top left-hand corner. If you click switch to edit mode, that makes all of these boxes of text pink throughout the system, of which you can click on it, and it brings up a text box to allow you to make changes on that particular client's notes, but not for every single client in your database. I'm only changing this for Church Lane 2023 accounts in this circumstance. However, my favourite way of doing it is not actually clicking this text, because I don't like the text box in my personal opinion. I like to click the paragraph button next to it, of which it then takes me directly to the edit notes screen for me to make the changes here. And if I make any changes in here, for example, type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and click save and close, it then does a quick refresh, and we should see, yep, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on my accounts there under sales of goods. Yeah, so it's quite a nice way to then to flow through. And as well as clicking on text, if I scroll up and find my cost of sales, by my profit and loss account, you can see all the numbers throughout the accounts also have pink boxes around them as well, which means if I click on, for example, the cost of sales section of 13.9 million, I then get a really nice breakdown of the nominal codes that make up that 13.9 million. So rather than having to go to, say, a separate set of working papers or to my TB to see where everything was posted, I can click on the physical numbers and go, oh, hang on, there's something not quite right in that. That's in the wrong nominal. So I'm able to then click on the blue hyperlink to see what is in my nominal code, and you would be able to see all the transactions that have been posted into this particular nominal code from either a TB import or brought across from, say, Xero or Free Agent. And you can also, I appreciate mine has got no narrative. I should have imported a TB with narrative in there. You are then able to click on the actual narrative and see the full batch posting that individual transaction was posted into TaxCalc. So being able to do a full drill down straight from the face of the accounts from that edit mode in the top left hand corner should be able to help you through that product as well. So again, if I show you that very quickly, you just go to the accounts, whether it be full or registrar, and it's that switch to edit mode button in the top left hand corner. You click that, it gives you your pink boxes on numbers or text, and you just click on them and it gives you the breakdown information behind it.
Mandy has asked Nick whether we can print that breakdown I'm not sure. I couldn't quite place when that message came through, but
so you can't print that breakdown. That's quite a good point. We've actually got the our product owner for the accounts system on the call today. So first-hand requests will be going through to the product team. It's quite a nice little, quite a nice thing to request there. So yeah, we'll definitely be taking note as an option. Is that something, Mandy, that you would like to print off and put on the client file, or pass around members of your team? Is that the type of thing you'd want to do with that? Just kind of interested what you would want to do with that information.
Tony Kelly says you can also do this from the nominal ledger report, which is quite useful.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do it. So you can do it from the nominal ledger, which I'll get to. But if you go to trial balance, you have your information in here, and you can click on the blue hyperlinks, and it'll take you through to that section as well, which takes you to the nominal ledger as well. So if you click to nominal ledger, you can click on the transaction and edit it in there. And all this information is editable. You can actually change the amounts. You can change the nominal codes it posted to. There's a few different things you can do in that. But if I go back to trial balance, there's always something which I kind of forget when I'm preparing for these kind of sessions. Trial balance, you'll hopefully see that I've got my current and comparative year there in single columns, and with positive and negatives denoted by whether they have brackets or not. One thing you can do is you can click Customize in the top left-hand corner, the same place as where that Edit Notes button was. And if I say remove my 2022, so it's just 23, I think this is what I would expect you to have as your default option, debit and credit as two columns. But if I click Customize and bring it back to 2023 and 2022, there's two options where I like to tick variance as an amount and as a percentage. And it gives you a really cool report that shows you the current and the comparative TBs with a variance depending on the amount of percentage. And from a nice little profit and loss review report, I always found this really helpful when I worked in practice before. To be fair, the software I used wasn't quite as nice and easy to get that report out. I had to do it a lot on manual before, whereas TaxCalc has made it nice and easy for you to prepare. And you can actually set this up as a default option for you and your team in the admin section of accounts production. If you went to admin, so if you went to Admin Center, Applications, Accounts Production, and then in here it will be Notes and Reports. Yep, Notes and Reports. Trial Balance. Do you want to show the last comparative figures on Trial Balance by default, and do you want to include the pounds and the percentages in there? So again, that would be how you would standardise that for your practice if you want that to be the default, including the difference between the 2 years.
There is so much within TaxCalc that people don't see and miss, and every time we do this, we get people going, I never knew that, and it's great. I come across these all of the time.
You don't know what you don't know, I think, with these kind of things. If you're using it day in, day out, and there's something that someone's never shown you,
yes, absolutely,
you might not realise.
And what I would say, obviously Nick can become quite unbearable with about how much he knows about TaxCalc. So if you do want to knock him off his perch a little, and you've got a better way of doing something,
Absolutely.
we desperately want.
I'm sure there will be.
Someone said I'd love to have some in-depth practice management training here. So I wonder how that could be achieved. I don't know.
So I wonder if this is practice manager training in terms of a database, or practice manager training in terms of a workflow tool. I mean, we could look at doing some kind of one-to-many practice manager trainings, but we also offer either 1, 2, or 3 hour sessions on whatever you want in the product. Effectively, you're taking time of one of our consultants. Workflows, right? So I can understand, Sarah, why you might want some training on that, because that's quite bespoke to your particular firm, rather than kind of some videos on the website for other bits of the system might be quite generic. Yeah, absolutely. Workflows is something that I would really recommend bespoke training on that. And like I said, you can sort out 1, 2, or 3 hour sessions on those particular products by getting in touch with your account manager. If you're not sure who your account manager is, please just drop an email to support@taxcalc.com, and we'll be able to help you out with getting you in touch with the right person. I've just seen there, Catherine has asked a question: can the font on reports be changed? I don't know if that's been sparked by the fact that my font is maybe different than yours, Catherine, because I have actually changed my font from the standard. So if I share my screen and show you how to change that, effectively it's dead easy to make that change. Effectively, that screen should hopefully have come through to you now. If I go to Admin Center in the bottom left-hand corner, and then it's Report Styles on the bottom of your tree on the left-hand side, that taskbar, you can see I've changed mine to Arial, rather than Verdana. I think Verdana is the default. So I like to have mine as Arial. I have mine text size normal, but if you would prefer your text size to be large, and you can see what that would look like throughout the accounts, and then I have mine to be justified, so it fits the text all the way along the page. Where I think the default is Verdana normal left. I believe this is the normal, the default tax calc view. I prefer, it sounds quite silly, if I change it to Arial and Justified. They're my preferences. So I don't know if, Catherine, if that was sparked by the fact that you thought, oh, your accounts look slightly different than mine. That's because that's how I've changed mine in the report styles. And again, you make that change in here and it would then affect every single set of accounts that you produce throughout the system.
A question from Zara as well, Nick. Can we use TaxCalc for periodic management accounts?
So with management accounts, I appreciate that TaxCalc Accounts Production is not management accounts software. Okay, it's purely designed for annual accounts. But if you wanted to try and find the right word here, if you wanted to kind of fudge it, right, you could create a period of 1 month or a quarter in accounts production, and effectively just import the number of transactions that you want. I appreciate they're not going to be full detailed management accounts that you might be able to get from quite a complex bookkeeping system. But if you just wanted to produce a period set of accounts for your client, effectively just change the dates and import your information.
I have another question, which I discovered in the Q&A. We have a lonely question in the Q&A from Jamie. On company accounts, is it possible to have the address and logo on the front sheet automatically not appear on the filing account?
Possible to have the address, and this might be that question that you said might stump me, Andy. I think you have
Is
to
this
spot
it?
on with this one. On company accounts, is it possible to have the address and logo on the front sheet to have automatically not appear on the filing count?
Jamie, if you were...
Right, so I think I know what it means. Probably just need to come off mute. I think that basically in the account settings, you can choose on the presentation area whether you want to include the name and address of the practice, and that is kind of on for full and registrar's set. Again, there might be something which we can take note of. Was it Jamie? And we can take that away today. It's not something that you can do in TaxCalc, unfortunately, Jamie, at the minute. But again, it's something we can take note of. We've got one more. We've got one more question.
We've
for the
got one
quiz,
more
haven't we?
question for the pub quiz. We're coming to the end. So, question, answers in the chat, please. Where do you find 64.8 forms in TaxCalc? Where are they? First one in wins. No points. You think we're going to go with George? Well, we've got Rosemary and Aftab.
I think if we
Managed-
combine their answers,
they actually won.
want
Yeah.
half a point each. I
Yeah.
think.
So the answer being under HMRC forms. Would you believe?
Yeah, the reason why we put this in is that I've been out to a number of firms recently, and we talked about the onboarding process that they had for their clients, and a number of them mentioned that they use GoProposal for a few things and whatever. But in terms of generating 64.8s, a lot of people were still doing them on paper. They were printing it out and writing them out, and they were TaxCalc users. They didn't know that the HMRC form section was available, included with your TaxCalc subscription. So if I take you through how you would go to the 64.8, because one of the things that is that's I'd say makes us stand out differently from another of the other providers that are out there, is that with HMRC forms, I can open up a particular client, for example, Colin Fields here, and go to new form in the top right hand corner, and then these are the forms that are included in the TaxCalc products as standard with tax. So you can see 64.8 sits there at the top, it's in alphabetical order, and obviously numbers at the top. If I choose 64.8 and click create, and then double click on it, it then guides me through via the simple step method on the left hand side, the ability where you would have your agent details. Mine obviously blank in my fake system. It's probably quite good for people that I can't file tax returns in 64.8. No one want to be on my books. But if I go to page 1, it then literally shows you the 64.8 on screen, which will pull through as much information as it can from my database into the body of that letter. For example, it's pulling through Colin Fields' fake national insurance number in that top right hand corner there. You then go via page 2, page 3, fill in what you need to, and then once you go to finish, the big thing is that you are able to file online once you've got authorization from your client that you're happy to send that off. Also, check and finish, right? Everyone loves check and finish, where it takes you to make sure that you've filled in everything necessary before you send it off. I'm sure you're all aware of that in the tax and accounts products in their own right. But check and finish, even on a 64.8 form, is really helpful. So it knows that you've not missed out anything important. But it's the filing online function through TaxCalc, which should save you a lot of time if any of you are still sending them through paper.
It's almost as if it was designed like specifically for accountants as the perfect tool, isn't it? It's strange.
It's almost like
It's
some people
almost-
know what they're doing in
Yeah.
the product team, isn't it?
It's almost like that.
Yeah.
2 questions coming in. So one from Sarah saying, do you have a separate one for a company and a director and the director?
Okay, yeah, effectively, you would have to file a separate 64.8 for the company, the director, yes.
And John has asked, how do we get the client to sign the 64-8?
That's a great question. So Danny, it's probably Danny's favourite part of the system, not just the expanding windows. Every single demo we do together to a prospective client, Danny always makes sure that I showcase the separate window screen. But in terms of an individual module that TaxCalc has, Danny's favourite one is eSign. So what you'll find even in the 64.8 screen is in the top right hand corner, the ability to add this 64.8 to the eSign envelope to send to your client for electronic signature. They then can log into potentially a password protected document, sign where they need to, date where they need to, and send it back to yourself as the accountant as a signed copy for you to save in your document management solution, and then file to HMRC once you've got that signed document back. Yes. And you'll see that add to eSign envelope button throughout the product if there's anything that we would expect you to want to send to your client for approval. Yeah,
absolutely. And then once it's signed, you can send it to HMRC. I think that's probably one thing that a lot of clients will already use, that process, because it's sat within the body of the TaxCalc software anyway. But eSign's a great tool, and eSign's a great tool for getting approval on any document that you need, whether that's a client onboarding process that you need to have signed documents for, a bill. That might be a step too far for some firms, but I always like to suggest it. I think just having the ability to have a document signed, returned to you without the client having to log into a portal, because portals can be quite onerous sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for users who haven't sort of got their head around it. So just being able to send out that email, I think, is quite useful. A couple of questions coming through here, just from Kathy. Can you register a client for self-assessment too?
Let's see what I have got in my HMRC forms. I believe you can. If I then go to HMRC forms again, and then open up Colin Fields, and then go to new form, we'll see in this drop-down box you have the option to either register for self-assessment as a sole trader or register for self-assessment and getting a tax return. So I expect they're the 2 options that you'll be after on that one.
Yeah, and I think John just wants clarification whether you're sending the signed, the chat's moving around, whether you're sending the signed 64.8 to HMRC, or do they accept a blank 64-8?
I believe they accept a blank 64-8. It does not need a signature on it. For example, same as sending a signed sending a set of accounts to Companies House. You don't need to send the one with the signature on. You can just send the blank one.
So hopefully that answers your question there, John. We've had a load of questions come through in the chat as well whilst we've been talking away. We've had one saying, is there a facility in Corp Tax to notify HMRC of the actual accounting period for a new company to avoid HMRC issuing notices for default periods?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, that's another question I don't know. Sorry.
Nick is stumped. This is.
I think a point for that.
Yeah, you put me nailed down on that.
I think we've opened up a treasure trove
I'm
by
struggling to
talking
keep up
about
at this point.
HMRC
Yes.
forms.
Sorry, guys.
So many questions coming through. By the way, Kathy, if you've missed anything, we will be sending out a copy of this at the end of the session, so you'll get this and you can watch it back, share it with your family, might make a nice Christmas movie. But yeah, you will get a copy of this, so you can go back and review it.
But there you go. It's under HMRC forms. It's the 4th button down in that 3rd column. You then open up the client you want to create a form for, and then you go to new form and choose which it is from that drop-down list.
Do you want to go through the rest of those? There's more questions coming in, or do you want to move on?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Nick.
I think
I've got lots to cover.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I appreciate we've only got just over 10 minutes left. There's a couple of things I want to make people aware of, because again, when we do these, we get lots of emails and messages through our socials about other things that they didn't know about. Either we heard from other training sessions, and there's a couple of things that have come to mind that I think should help you with a bit of shortcuts. So if I open up, say, one of my reports, and so if I go to Practice Manager and then under Report Manager on the left-hand side, I appreciate we've gone through this in previous Power Hours as well. But if I, say, find one of the standard reports in my system, for example, self-assessment returns not filed, and then hit Run on the left-hand side, this shows me all of my self-assessment returns in my system. And if you were using us for the workflow tool, you'd be able to see the status of where that tax return is up to. For example, have we requested the information? Have we received it? Is it currently being prepared? Is it under review? Is it out for signature? Has it been signed? has it been filed? Yep, you have all of those different statuses based on tasks being completed in and out the process. But what you can do with these reports, because this is a tax return status report, I could, for example, go, oh, I'm not sure about, oh, Lisa's currently under review. I'll tell you what, I've got a bit of time. I can have a look at Lisa's tax return now and go and review it. I can click on Lisa and it will open up that tax return for me to go and review. And that's the same for accounts production work status reports. You can actually click on the actual client in the report and it will either take you straight to the tax return or set of accounts, or even if it's a client-based report, it will take you to the client that you can then use the cog in the top right corner to very quickly navigate to the tax return. So those reports that you can produce and create and give you a list of clients, it's a very nice way of navigating through the system by clicking straight on it.
Okay, so we're still getting questions coming through, but I know AML was something that people asked about. So I don't know, do you want to touch on some of those points, or?
Yeah, and I think that it works quite nicely. But I think is it next few weeks, Andy? You've got a separate webinar with the Calathea group on AML as well, and there's 1,700 people signed up for that webinar. I believe.
Yes,
it's one of our most popular ones ever.
Yeah. So if questions about AML, it'll be next week, next Wednesday at 2:30 in the afternoon. We will have myself and Dean will be joined by Lucy and Mike from Calathea Solutions. We're going to be looking at they're basically ex-inspectors. They're going to be exploring and sharing with us what the inspector sees when he comes into your firm. So if he sees certain behaviours, certain types of activity that might raise his suspicions or lower them. So very, very useful to watch. And there's going to be a bit of drama in there as well, which I'm very excited about. But sorry, carry on. I hijacked.
No, that's spot on, Andy. Yeah. So with that in mind, we always have a question about how to store various bits of information in TaxCalc with the AML product in mind. I appreciate there'll be a number of people on the call today who don't have our AML products, but maybe don't have one. They might do their risk assessments on Excel, store their identification documents just in a network drive, and think AML is kind of the hot topic at the minute in terms of. I always get the I always get my AAT magazine every month. First thing I always do is flick to the naughty boy page. I was talking to Andy about this, and if you go through that page, it's always AML. That's what all the fines are provided by AAT. So having a solution like what's integrated in TaxCalc, effectively just store all your information in one product. And kind of if you ever do get an investigation, and this is what Lucy is going to be talking about on Wednesday next week, is that you can have it all in one place and kind of just do a bit of a shove and go, there it is. That's everything. That's everything. I'm kind of not ruining the thunder for Wednesday next week, but I'm sure it'll be more interesting than that. But if I show you how AML kind of does work in TaxCalc, if any of you are interested in what that side of it does, effectively I'm on my home screen there, and if I go to AML Centre and click Open on my firm-wide compliance, I have a few different sections on the left-hand side. If I start mainly towards the bottom, though, and start with a firm-wide risk assessment, you can actually complete a firm-wide risk assessment in TaxCalc, which I believe you've got to do one every single year, and it provides a list of questions for you to answer. And again, those questions have all been kind of designed around the regulatory bodies, making sure that you're going to be fully compliant as a firm, and that can be updated and saved every single year. So if you do get an investigation, you can just find the last time you did a firm-wide risk assessment and send it to the client. Send it to your regulatory body. But if I go to say internal control, I was when I was at Accountex with Andy on Tuesday last week. I don't know if anyone on the call today sat through one of the talks there by a guy called David Winch. I'm sure there's people on the call today who will be aware of David. He's been active in the accounting industry for a long time, well respected in the AML scene. And one of the things that he kind of made a big point of in terms of making sure that in terms of what a lot of people kind of get trouble with AML is not having the policies and procedures and staff training records easily to hand, so that if you get an investigation, you go, there they are, because if you struggle to find them, they're clearly not easy for people to look up. So effectively having the ability to store those policies and procedures and staff training records in TaxCalc and have it as a central location for all that information is massively beneficial, and having that integrated in the rest of the product is really, really popular. But also under status management and client due diligence is where you'll be able to see whether you've done when you did your client identification and stored things like passports, driving licenses, or non-photo identity, for example, like a utilities bill, and store history of when you saw that document and when the expiry dates are. The risk assessment allows you to do a full risk assessment on your client in terms of, are they a politically exposed person? Are they known to you or your staff? It'll ask you about 30 or 40 questions. And based on those answers, it will then give you a risk score of that particular client. You see I've got 2 there for Colin and Ronald that I filled out that have been normal or low or listed as normal. So yeah, you can do that, do all those areas in our AML Centre product. The verification step is the online AML ID checks. Now, you can do those through TaxCalc as well. Those are technically provided by Equifax, but effectively they integrate in the system. You wouldn't know it's a third-party system, but effectively you buy a batch of licenses to do that, and they're all prices on the website of TaxCalc. But effectively, being able to do all of those areas of the AML process, but in one consistent system in the same database that you do everything else for your practice, outside of maybe something like payroll, having that in one place it just makes it a lot easier for everyone involved.
So Julianne's asking about, can we store client ID, passports, that kind of thing?
So you don't store the actual documentation in TaxCalc, but what you effectively do is, if I say go to Sam Fetch here and go to create the identification stage, and it's going to ask for a code. I'm just going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter in that circumstance, but you have a relevant reference for it. You have to tick a box to say that you have provided a relevant data protection statement. I imagine this is all already in your engagement letters that you provide for your clients. But it's under identity evidence on the left-hand side, which is where if you click add, it will then ask what type of document do you have. Is it photo identity? Is it non-photo identity? And then you choose what the relevant documentation is. You answer all the relevant fields, such as reference number, place of birth, expiry date. And if you do have a copy of that document stored somewhere on your network drive, you can say, yes, we do have a certified copy. Click browse, and it will browse to the relevant document location for it. All it will do though is create a hyperlink. It won't actually store a copy of that passport documentation in TaxCalc. It's purely a hyperlink. But again, it's still much easier just to go to the client record, click on the hyperlink, and it shows you it rather than navigate through the folders. But again, it's not stored within TaxCalc. It's just a hyperlink to it. But again, having all of that in the system and reportable and showing when it was last filled in, when the expiry dates are, better than not having it in the rest of the system that you use on every single day for your compliance tools for the within TaxCalc.
Awesome. Anyone got any particular questions about AML? It's a huge subject. There's a lot to cover. We can't necessarily answer questions about the technical and the legal side of things, but very much about how TaxCalc can help you manage your risks and evidence that. So if you do have any particular questions, do throw those in the chat. We've got a couple of minutes left before we have to wrap up. So I don't think there was any came through on AML. There is one question I wanted to ask about something
There
else.
was one question that Tony's put in saying charity and club accounts. Are these products being considered for development? So charity accounts are on the development plan, and we are hoping for them to be out in around October 2024, but it may be a release later than that. It kind of develops. It kind of depends on the full development tree for that. But we are hoping for about 12 months from now. And as well as that, I appreciate that you mentioned club accounts, but group accounts are actually expected to come out before then. We're hoping for group accounts to be out in around March or April next year. So it'll be the plan is for groups in March and April next year, and then charity accounts following. Okay, club accounts would then be next on the agenda, but we haven't got a definitive timeline for that. Sorry, Tony.
And then Sarah wants to know about P11D.
P11D. So
It's something that we're working on at the moment. But again, with all of our product development, it's very difficult to build out a timeline on it. But it's great to hear what people are after, really, and what people are wanting to see in TaxCalc, so that we can feed that back to our product teams. So every vote for a product that we don't have at the moment is useful for us to understand.
We do share all of these with our product team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But Sarah, watch this space.
That space.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so look, we probably haven't got time to get into a whole nother session, a whole nother question.
Wouldn't say so, no.
But there was I think what we'll probably do, we'll wrap up now because we're just about to run out of time, and otherwise we will just run hopelessly over. So, wow, what a brilliant session. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I hope you did. I hope you found it useful. I think we learned about HMRC forms as a complete Aladdin's cave of treasure you can find in there, and I think the COG has probably come out as the champion part of tax calc for everyone, but not superseding the filing e-sign, which is Danny's favourite. So what I'd like to say is thank you very, very much for coming along. Thank you very much for participating as well. We would love to hear your feedback on this session. Also, if you're going about your work, we'll be doing another one of these around towards the end of November. If you do, something comes into your head, I'd like to ask that question, don't let it fly out of your mind. Write it down. Email it to me, andy.north@taxcalc.com. I'd like you to cover that. I'd like you to investigate that. Alternatively, if you're using TaxCalc and you think, I use this nifty little trick, email that as well, andy.north@taxcalc.com. And we'll factor all of those in. We'd love to hear your questions. Next time, I think we'll do the quiz again. And also what I'm going to do is challenge you to challenge Nick. So if you can come up with a question for Nick that he can't answer, you'll get a point. So awesome. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much, Danny. Thank you very much, Nick, for coming along. We will see you in about 4 weeks' time. Thank you.